and welcome to Ideas with Impact podcast. I am super excited today to have Jai with us. Hi, Jai.
Hello.
And she is a talented astrologer, intuitive singer-songwriter, a jewelry designer. I believe it's Eagle Start Jewelry, if I'm correct,
hmm
as well as a creator of Eagle Start Yoga. Jai also provide astrology webinars and private reading, helping us connect deeply with our heart space and trust our intuition. On her YouTube channel, you can find monthly astrology updates and powerful moon ceremony spiritual growth. Please join me in welcoming Jai to the show. Hello, love. How are you?
I'm so good. Thank you so much for having me here.
Yeah, thank you so much for saying yes. It was quite interesting how we connected. So I'm super excited to have you on and talk about all about astrology, gene keys, human design, and so on. So
Mhm.
why don't we just drop back in and see what we get?
Let's do it.
So I would love to hear from you. How did you come across this path that you're on right now? What brought you in to on this journey?
That's a good question. I feel like there's always been this background frequency for my whole life, even when I was little, this kind of yearning to, discover who I am or know myself, and all the experiences that I have had in my life have always left me wondering that for some reason. And when I was little, I actually was born in Argentina. And I came when I was 8, moved to the United States with my family, and that was one of the most traumatic experiences that I had. And it actually did. I think it was the catalyst for how like I unfolded basically into adulthood, because it was such an uprooting that completely brought all this chaos into my life, and kind of took away the identity that I had for everything, for family,
Mhm.
for friends, for um even language. Like we didn't even know the language when we came to the United States, and we had to learn like the fast track, like you're here now, you can't do anything but understand it and learn it. So that really kind of, it made me see that there is this thing as sort of like different identifying with different things, having different, ways of like feeling home and not home, and how I was taken away from one home and we had to build a new home with the family. And all of that just led me to always question that, go just always observe. I've always been an observer. And so I finally ended up, growing up, going to school, high school, and even college in Los Angeles. And when I was in my 20s and I actually finished college at UCLA, I decided to move to Boulder, Colorado. And my parents helped me do that, which was really nice. And when I was in Boulder, Colorado, I started to realize that there was a lot of shadows, I guess you could say, a lot of like, there was a lot of darkness, because what happened when I moved there, there was, I had never experienced a winter with like snow and things like that, where you couldn't leave the house for a few days or whatever, and it just so happened that that winter was one of the hardest winters that they'd had like in a long time. So I feel like it was all, perfectly aligned, but I went into a deep depression and ended up, gaining all this weight, just feeling really, really lost. And I had to go back home for like 2 weeks, I remember, and just go and lay in the sun at the beach because I'm like, this is crazy. But I was brave, and I didn't want to come back to LA. I was very clear to me that that was not the place for me, that it was not meant to be. So one thing led to another in Boulder, Colorado, and I discovered first yoga. That was kind of like the gateway for me to enter into this space of spirituality. And yoga led me to learn about the Eastern philosophies. and like the Yoga Sutras and,
Mhm.
breath work and different ways to how to take care of your body and how, your body is a temple. And these were concepts that I had no idea even existed, but I
Mhm.
resonated with them like in a really powerful way. And so from that, I was actually invited by a friend to my very first peyote ceremony, Native American peyote ceremony. And again, I had no idea what it was, but I felt drawn to it. But that ceremony was actually one of the most powerful, like heart opening experiences for me because my grandmother had passed away when I was 18. And in this ceremony, especially towards the end, where the heart really starts to open up, I felt her presence there for the first time. And I felt like she was hugging me, and it was like just this nurturing, loving energy. And I had not felt that because
Mhm.
backtrack to the story in my relationship with my mom, which I've since healed,
Mhm.
but grew up with a lot of narcissistic abuse. And so there was a lot of because of the stress that my mom was under, she just did not have the capacity to be emotionally intelligent with her kids. And so she just kind of threw all her anger and stress and frustration onto basically everyone. And she knows that now. We've moved beyond it and it's so beautiful the healing that has happened. But in the beginning I was so confused because I also had her voice in my head telling me you're supposed to do this and be this
Mhm.
and be this, and there was all this conditioning so so much. And I'm a projector in human design, which we can get into in a minute, but the
Mhm.
projectors are the most conditioned beings. So I was seriously messed up in the head when it
Mhm.
came to I have no idea who I am or what I'm supposed to be doing, and I
Mhm.
feel lost, and I'm doing the things that I think I'm supposed to be doing, that I've been told that I'm supposed to be doing, but I don't like it. And
Mhm.
I'm not happy, and I feel bitter in my life, and that unhappiness just did not sit well with me. I'm like, this can't be it. This can't be
Yeah.
life. So having this experience at this ceremony just opened me up to a whole new world, and that was really where the ball started rolling, and I started to dive into the experience that we often call the dark night of the soul, where
Mhm.
I was in a relationship for 5 years that was very emotionally toxic and not stable. And everything that I wanted, it was like I had the opposite, but somehow I was okay with it. So I had to go through the process of recognizing where in that space I was also creating and manifesting the experience. And
Mhm.
so that took me to realize that that was not the right relationship for me, that I really needed to do some deeper work within myself. And
Mhm.
so I did. I left that relationship. And, since then, I have been going and for once doing things that I wanted to do instead of what everybody else wanted me to do.
Mhm.
So that process was also challenging because in my family, I'm very much like the black sheep, like the one that
Mhm.
does very different things and no one
Mhm.
understands, but they love me, but they don't get it. Some of them
Mhm.
do. And that's been fun to navigate. But I ended up, diving into things that I actually was always interested in, but never really dove into them. And so one of them was, I did a lot of yoga teacher trainings, including Kundalini yoga, which is a really powerful practice. There's a lot of breath work and mantras, and I just loved it. And music and singing is also something that I love.
Mhm.
And then I found, little by little, I found astrology, started diving deep into that, learning about myself. I started doing courses and learning how to read astrology, and it came quite easy for me. There was just something about it. I don't know how to explain it, but it just came easy to me. And then I found Gene Keys, which is another system to help you know and understand yourself, and that blew my mind. And I went into that rabbit hole and kept studying, kept taking classes and courses, and then eventually found myself studying human design and so many things, so many things. But now because I surrendered and I allowed myself to kind of go into that place of darkness where I knew that there were things about myself that I also had to change. We kind of switch from this place of kind of blaming everyone else for our experiences and
Mm-hmm.
actually starting to take responsibility. And in that way, through that happening to me and having to step into responsibility about my life, I actually started to uncover who I really was and who I was kind of trying to be, but that wasn't part of me. Kind of like the snake that sheds its skin. You know, I removed all the layers that weren't me to actually be who I am. And so here I am today. And I'm much more stable, you know, in life. Like life is actually stable for once. And it wasn't always like that. But for me, the stableness was more in the realm of the emotions than anything else. So I've noticed that on my own, I'm much more emotionally neutral and calm and steady and like in that space, and that's healthy for me. And in my life I wasn't there. So that's how I know, at least for me personally, that I am finally in a place where I know who I am and I'm comfortable and I'm confident and expressing it and yeah. So but it's been a journey, like lifelong.
It's it's amazing because what you just have said has so much resonate with me because I am also an immigrant. We
Same. Yeah, exactly the same. I realize now going back and looking back that everything played a very special role
Mhm,
in my
mhm,
development. And so when
absolutely.
when I work with people and they ask me questions about things like that and the past and all this stuff, I always help remind people that you wouldn't be who you are today if it
Mhm,
wasn't for all those experiences. I actually had a very powerful, like, speaking of healing, the mother wound, which is such a deep
mhm,
one for women. I was taking an Akashic record certification, Akashic reader certification. And during that time, my dog Gaia it was time, she had been with me since that whole time in Boulder. I had actually got her in Boulder as a puppy when I first kind of moved there. And so she had been through that whole experience with me, the dark night of the soul, the learning, the discovering about myself. And so in 2021 was when I was doing that training. And it was happening around December, and that's when my dog Gaia was getting ready to go. And I knew it, and I was, as ready as anyone as you can be. She's also was my first dog, but the experience that I had with all the knowledge that I had gained was that when we were in my Akashic training, all the women in the class did this special reading for me where they communicated with my dog Gaia. And then the next day we did another session. And I wanted to find, my intention was to find what was the contract that I had signed with my mom. And
mhm,
so everything came into very clear view. And the message that I received was that it was connected to the maternal line. So it was the contract was with me, with my mom, and with my grandmother, because my mom had a very difficult childhood, and she also felt she had her wound was abandonment. She also felt like she didn't belong anywhere, and so she also wanted to run. She only felt safe with her brothers, her older brothers, and they had both moved to the United States. So she's like, I don't have anything left here in Argentina. I don't I want to go be with my brothers. And so she felt that pull, and she brought everybody with her, and it was because of her that we really ended up moving to the United States. My dad, has family in Argentina, and he was different for him. It was very hard because he loved his family, so it was hard for him to leave. But my mom didn't want to have. It was not hard for my mom. So, anyways, the contract was that my grandmother, everyone had chosen to play the role they played so that the evolution could happen. And for me, the story was that my grandmother had chosen to behave in the way and treat my mom and all that stuff the way that she treated my mom, so that my mom could have the experience she had, so that I could eventually experience what I experienced with my mom and actually wake up. But and so because they say that with people that are, somehow either deep healers or in some way. There's something about, their frequency is like they often have to go through these experiences of darkness to discover the light. And
Mhm.
because in you can only really find the light in the darkness is when the experiences transform and they take quantum leaps into healing.
Mhm.
And so and Gaia, my dog's name was Gaia too.
Mhm.
she she was there. Her contract was also connected with that, in that she came to be with me. We had, we had chosen to be together during that time so that she could really fully help me, like move through all that space, because dogs can be such beautiful companions, and she really was. It was like we were one and the same, me and my dog Gaia. But
Mhm.
so it was time for the next like I had gotten to a point where I had healed, and so it was she was done, so that's why
Mhm.
she had to go. And when she went, that's when the revelation came in, and that really powerful healing happened for me in terms of, with my mom, because I was actually not talking to her at that point, and it had been 4 years. 4 years that I did not talk to her, because I had to find out, who am I outside of this?
Yeah.
Who am I
Yeah,
outside of
it's
this?
tough. It's really tough to not to speak to your loved ones, especially
Yeah.
your parents. But sometimes you really have to move
Mhm.
away to find yourself, right?
Mhm.
Because I think we both coming from these um, traditions where parents were the people who you listen to in a way,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
So, yeah.
Yeah. No, and yeah, and again, the theme of like it was all perfectly divinely orchestrated for me to
Mhm.
get to where I am today. Like the first question you asked me was, how did you get to where you are today? And it's like it was a long process of paying attention, and wanting to heal, because I
Mhm.
do feel that, some people ask me about like, well, with astrology and all these systems, where is like free will in all of this? People ask me that
Mhm.
question sometimes. And my passion is to help people step into alignment. So
Mhm.
I use these systems like astrology, gene keys, and human design, because it helps me to understand the highest potential of that human being, and that when they are in that highest potential, and maybe not even highest potential, but maybe just in their design, they will
Mhm.
experience more joy and satisfaction and like success and,
Mhm.
just happiness in their lives. And I always ask people, well, how do you think you got out of alignment in the first place?
Mhm.
Free will. So we
Mhm.
have a choice, and along the way, it's always a choice. And that is where you go from feeling like a victim
Mhm.
of life, to actually recognizing that you have just as much power, and to take responsibility and change the entire perspective, the entire experience, because it's really all about perspective. Because I know you can have two different people in the same situation, and they will have completely different experiences. Like
Right.
they say with children and siblings, like all
Right.
three of my siblings, five of us, we all of us had a different experience of childhood. And how do you explain that when we're all in the same family?
Mhm.
It's we are individuals, and we came here to express that individuality and that uniqueness. It's in our DNA. It's in, you can see, like, you see all these things. Um, it's just hard to, like, at first, at least, it's a little challenging to accept that you
Mhm.
have that you have power. It's hard to make that transition to, no, I have my own power. I can make my own choices. But once that happens, it really unlocks the door to like so many beautiful things. And for me, it's like that's you stepping into alignment
Mhm.
and finding the joy that you were always looking for in life.
Mm. That's a big one for a lot of people, right? Because it's like you live this kind of um, I call it this automatic life that it's kind of like, you getting up in the morning, you go brush your teeth, you kind of going with that kind of flow of
Mhm.
I'm doing it because I'm doing it. There's no really any excitement, nothing's happening kind of thing. So it's like, how do you pivot or how you change for a better life, for a happier life, for just you being happier,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
So, so So that will bring me to, how do you wave together astrology, gene keys, and human design to basically create understanding of self?
Hmm. So I started with astrology. That was the first system that I studied. And the interesting thing about all those three systems that you just mentioned is they're all actually based off of the Western tropical astrology. And so they all ask you for the same information, like what time were you born, what day were you born, what location were you born, and they look at the planets. And the human design and the gene keys looks at the planet positions 88 days before you were born, because they both speak of this sort of conscious side of us and unconscious side of us that are both, weaving themselves through us. Some of these things we're aware of and some of them we're not aware of. So that's the only difference, but really they're all based off of astrology. So having that foundational understanding of astrology really helped me when I recognized this, that all the three systems were using the same method to come up with the positions of your chart, that I was able to read it even more, even deeper, and with a different perspective. And so I realized that these three systems are really all just different languages to tell you the same thing, which makes it really, really cool. Because so astrology to me is more of a neutral space where you're looking at archetypes, you're looking at shadows and gifts as well, but you're understanding cycles of life, like it's like these pieces of yourself, of your personality, and you get to see them all as different pieces, but you make that whole. You make your chart, you are the embodiment of that chart. And then with the gene keys, is a very well, with human design, is a very strategic and masculine voice. And it tells you literally, like, if you follow your strategy and your authority, and this is exactly what you need to do, you will step into your design. If you understand how these things work, you will step into your design. And they call it the experiment. Literally, they call it the human design experiment. From the moment you discover your human design, it's like 7-year cycles. So for the next 7 years, you're doing the experiment. You're like, okay, if this is my strategy and my authority, let me see what happens if I try this experiment, and let me see what happens. Is it going to
Mm,
work? Is it not going to work? So it's very masculine in that sense, right? And then the gene keys is the feminine voice. It is all about contemplation, meditation. The way that Richard Rudd speaks about the gene keys and writes about the gene keys is just so poetic and like
mm,
beautiful. It's like a song. I don't even know how to describe it, but to me, it's sacred, divine, feminine flow. So depending on who I'm working with, we'll
mhm,
focus on maybe one or all three. Now I just kind of intuitively flow through all of them. But
mhm.
that's how I use them, is because some of these voices are just different ways of helping you understand yourself, and they're literally all based off of the same information.
So is this something that they will like almost decode their personal patterns or their life purpose, for example, or
Y-
it's like
All of
looking
it.
at at your map in a way. It's like a
All of it.
star, map of the stars in a way, right?
Mhm. Yeah,
Yeah.
so the Gene Keys helps you uncover your life's work, how you evolve the most, how you radiate once you start to like really do the work and have powerful breakthroughs, and what keeps you
Mhm,
healthy, and then eventually what is your purpose, which is about being, not doing. And then it actually goes into the Venus sequence, which is all about relationships and how these, when you're triggered in relationship,
mm,
is when you grow and evolve. And it's the most powerful, like kind of fast track to real growth is within
mhm,
relationships. So like if you avoid relationships, like you're avoiding the growth. That's
mhm,
the underlying theme behind it, even though relationships are hard, but that's the whole point. It's because we get faced with the challenges, because is there something about being in relationship, especially intimate relationships like romantic relationships, we kind of get lost in the experience, and
mhm,
we forget, and so and then but then something happens where one person or the other, something gets said or done, and then we get triggered from, and these are wounds from the past, so
mhm,
they show up in relationship more than anywhere else. And these are the opportunities to heal. And the Gene Keys is all based on, you can have shadows, you have gifts, and you have cities. And the cities are the divine frequencies. So most of the time, you're going to be in the shadow. And then when you learn to transmute that shadow, you're going to start stepping into the gift. Then eventually you'll get glimpses of the divine energy of that gene key that lives in your chart. So you focus on the ones that are in your chart, and they do give you insight into how to heal it within relationship. Like what are the what are the mental blocks, the emotional blocks, the things that like protect you from looking at those deeper childhood wounds, because there's an aspect in the gene keys that actually goes back in time, for like looking into like the first 21 years of life and then conception, and it talks about a core wound that you chose in this lifetime to heal. And as you heal it for yourself, you heal it for the collective, because we're all parts of the whole.
Mm,
Yeah, so everything you can look, there's so much you can
mm,
look at in these systems to discover these things about yourself.
it's very interesting. It's like it literally opens up the can of worms, I call it, because it's like once you get in, then you're like, there's no way out. Because when I started, I think with the numerology as well. I dip my toes in there just a little bit, just to find things out, where I'm at. I'm a number 11, which is again the healer. Number 2, I mean, depends of what you look at. I have all written down here because I was like, oh my goodness, I'm going to get lost in all of this. Same thing with the human design manifesting generator. So I've learned a lot about that. The number 6-2, what does it mean? I'm still learning. And gene keys are new for me because I think about 4 months ago, I came across a podcast with the original, what's his name?
Rudd, Richard Rudd.
Yes, Brad. Thank you so much.
Hmm.
And I was just kind of curious. And I'm like, okay, let's go see what happens. And it was quite interesting. Um, when he talks about the genius, the love, and the prosperity, and things like that, right? It's like how everything's connected. Quite interesting stuff. It's unbelievable.
And the thing about the gene keys and why all these systems complement each other is
Hmm.
because, specifically with the gene keys, the role that it plays in our lives, in my perspective, is that it calls you to look at things yourself.
Hmm.
You can't go like so many people, and this is something that we all do because we want answers and we don't know where to find them. So we're like, "Oh, here's an astrology reader. Here's someone that can help me understand my, human design chart, or even guide me to help me do my gene keys." But most of us, when we first come to the table to discover that, we want someone else to tell us who we are. Along the way, what you learn is that you learn to tell yourself who you are, right? And that's the
Hmm.
process. And the Gene Keys is so good at doing that, because it's about sitting with the information, reading the chapters in the book. These are transmissions. Like, this was a channel transmission by Richard Rudd
Hmm.
from the universe, cosmic mind, whatever you want to call it, the Akashic, whatever you want to call it. I do feel like the when people are in that state of, lucid channeling, that we can definitely channel some really beautiful and powerful things to help humanity. And this is one of the ways that I think maybe all of them came this way. I don't know. But the Gene Keys is all about you sitting with the information yourself and contemplating it and meditating on it. And there's no answer that just going to jump out at you. And so that process itself is, most people are, maybe they have a difficult time understanding what they're supposed to do with that, like, I just want somebody to tell me what to do. And the Gene Keys is like, no, you need to sit with it. You need to figure out what you need to do, and it needs to come from within you, because the answer to all of this is that I can look at your charts, right? And I can see all the different things that make you who you are, the shadows, the light, the gifts. all that stuff. And I see it from my perspective of who I am.
Hmm.
But you are you. You
Yeah.
are the embodiment of all those charts. So you know more than I do. I can help you find your way to the answers, but the
Hmm.
answers are going to come from you. And that's why the Gene Keys is so beautiful and to me so sacred feminine, because it's about sitting with the information, giving yourself time, which is something that in our society, for some reason, it's like, no, there's no time. You need to hurry up. You need to have the answers right now. You need to get,
Yeah.
you need to, and that is such a ingrained belief system that
Hmm.
we look at something that tells us we need to sit with it for a while, like sometimes months. And it's like, no, I don't have time for that. So,
Yeah.
yeah, so that's part, so that's why it's a learning to slow down with the Gene Keys.
Self-awareness, like you said earlier, sitting within yourself. And I mean, I understand we have busy lives and everything, but we all can find that 5-10 minutes in the morning, at night, or whatever. And like you said, sit with it. It basically will unlock one's highest potential. And really, like, I know a lot of people talk about, oh, I'm so tired of the 9 to 5 job. Then, it's great. We all have to make living and everything. But, take that to the next level. And like you said, sit with it. And is this something that you are meant to do? Or are you here for a greater good? Or are you here to do something else? And I
Mhm,
think these
mhm,
answers will come out only to you. And you can interpret it, like you said, interpretation. Your interpretation about me, or me about myself, or someone else about me is completely different. So it's what you see within yourself to unlock that.
mhm.
I love it.
And it can, yeah, and it can really help to have someone help guide you through that process, because
That's right.
like, but the actual reflection happens within yourself. And
Hmm.
because I mean, I had to go through that too. Through the
Hmm.
tell me, I want to know more, to, oh, I have to do this myself. You know? And then the
Oh,
whole
I
thing,
know. I went through it last year. I was getting so frustrated because I was like, I don't understand. I was just like, I'm so confused. But then slowly, and I'm still not 100% there, but like, every once in a while, I'll sit in there and I'll read it, and I will take something from it, or if I don't understand it, I'm like, it's okay. I'll come back to it when I'm ready,
Mhm,
so
mhm.
yeah.
Yeah, and it's funny because I discovered the Gene Keys and human design well before I started to study them.
Hmm.
But I never fully went into it when when like human design came to me. I remember I saw my chart. I was like, I don't know what this means. I got a book, never looked at it. The book is still sitting there. I took a course. I never even read the book that I originally bought like years ago. It's the craziest thing ever. I bought other books, I read other books instead of that one that, it's so random. But I was like, I'm going to study human design. And then it just did not click. So it does help to have someone kind of guide you through the understanding of it. And you do have to take it one little piece at a time, because these
Hmm.
systems are expansive. These are rabbit holes. Like, you're not going to get it all in one day, all in one
Hmm.
sitting every time. And I remind people that it's like, if you get a reading, it's the beginning of the journey. And from here
Yeah.
on out, it's like you continue that journey along at the pace that is right for you. And
Yeah.
sometimes it's not time. You let it sit there for years. And then when it's time, you're like, huh, and you're ready, and it comes and you finally sit down and do it. And that's fine. Like, there's no judgment in like whether you do
Hmm.
it faster than somebody else. Like, that's the thing. That's the kind of mentality that I feel all knowing about ourselves and our unique design can help us to start to release as a collective, that we
Hmm.
have to have things at a certain time frame. It's like, no, the universe, time doesn't exist. The universe is timeless. You chose to be in this
Hmm.
life. You chose to have these experiences. Just allow yourself to have the experiences. Yeah, some of them are going to be shitty. Some of them are going to be amazing, and they'll flow back and forth. But
Just
there's
be
like a
open to
deeper,
them. Yeah.
yeah, there's like a deeper layer that we can be connected to. And I feel like knowing about these things about yourself connects you to that deeper layer, which ultimately helps you find more meaning in life, in the
Hmm.
things that feel meaningless or mundane, such as a nine to
Hmm.
five job.
Right.
The other thing too is that depending on your design, you may be well suited for that or not. For example, as a projector, I can't have a 9 to 5. That will kill me. That will literally physically make me sick.
Mhm.
Projectors are meant to rest more than they actually work. And
Mhm.
that's because their energy is meant to be very used very efficiently. And they don't have a defined sacral center. They don't have the kind of consistent energy that the manifesting generators or the
Mhm.
generators have. So they need to rest more than anything else. And they need to be able to do their own schedule, right? And this
Mhm.
can be true of anybody, whether you're a
Right.
projector or not. But the generators, for example, and the manifesting generators have consistent energy. And the gauge for them is frustration versus satisfaction. So if they are going through life and they are frustrated with everything, that
Mhm.
is your gauge telling you you're going in the right direction, or you're living in what they call the not self. So
Mhm.
there's a self theme, which is you, your unique design, and then it's being in the self or in the not self, right? That
Mhm.
when you're in the not self, you're not in alignment. So as a generator or manifesting generator, you feel frustrated with life because
Mhm.
you're supposed to feel satisfaction in life. It seems simple, like, really, that's it. I'm just supposed to feel satisfied. Yes, but when you live in that satisfaction, the joy is like insurmountable. Like you can't even, it's timeless, it's boundless, and you live in that joy, and everything you do comes from that space. And so you're essentially channeling these beings that have a defined sacral, are channeling the life force energy of the planet. And how do they know they're doing it? Well, you're supposed to do what you love, not
Mhm.
what frustrates you, but what brings you joy and satisfaction. And then when you do those things, it's like your energy center gives you an abundance of energy to do it. And every day you wake up, you'll feel recharged. You feel alive. You feel like,
Mhm.
yes, I'm ready for the day.
Mhm.
But when you're in that frustration, you'll wake up tired, exhausted. You won't feel like you have the energy. You'll be like depleted. And so
Yeah.
it's like it's easy to gauge where you're at, but it's hard to get out of. It's the belief systems that keep us locked in living lives that we think we're supposed to be doing, but we're just living frustrated if you're, if you're a
Mhm.
generator.
Frustration, fear, whatever it is that's blocking you from, again, from your best potential that you can be in this life.
There's so much creative potential in humanity, but it's being stunted by
Yeah.
these societies and structures that they are crumbling, that we're going through
Mhm.
a big change right now. These structures are starting to crumble. And as they do, humanity will have to find their way through the chaos. And as we do that, one of the things that is going to be the most powerful, I feel, for the quantum leap into this new age that we call the Aquarian age, or this new
Mhm.
timeline, is we need to know where is our creativity? What are our gifts? We have gifts that we don't even know exist because our view of reality is so limited. But it's
Mhm.
not our fault. It's like this is just the society and the world that we were born into, but we perpetuate it because we
Mhm.
take on those beliefs, and we continue doing the same things because of those beliefs. So
Mhm.
studying these systems about yourself can help show you where you are holding on to a belief about yourself that is not true, and
Mhm.
that you have this gift over here that you didn't even know you had. What if you try to see what happens if you use this gift? And that
Mhm.
is where that opens the door to you actually stepping fully into your creativity. We're creative beings, but the creativity is being blocked. That's what I feel is happening, but the
Mhm.
change is has already begun.
Mm. I think that there is a global awakening at
Yes.
this moment on a massive level. And the question would be to you, do you see the signs that actually this is happening? And do you see what could the future bring for humanity, for example? I mean, I don't want to ask you the predictions, anything like that, but it's just like, are we heading out into a good direction?
Everybody's got a choice. And
Mm.
you can't predict it, right? So coming back to that question about, like, can you predict my future? It's like, no, because it's the choices that each of us make individually that will affect the whole. But that's why the passion for me is to teach people to find their center within themselves so that they can make the correct decisions in alignment with their own unique design. And that will change the world. So I work at this sort of microcosmic level individually with
Mm,
people, which is what projectors are really good at, one-on-one,
mhm,
because I believe that that is what's going to make a bigger difference than looking at, bigger pattern. The bigger patterns are like a reflection of what's going on internally within individuals. It's like the
mm,
macrocosm and the microcosm. So I don't know what's going to happen in the future. I
mm,
hope that it's going to be a powerful transition. I do feel it, like, but it's because I'm in alignment with myself. And that just innately makes me feel hopeful for the future.
mm,
So that tells me that if more people stepped into their alignment more and more, we are going to see
mm,
that beautiful change towards a more harmonious society and world instead of a chaotic one, right? And a
mhm,
dark one. And either way, these shadows and lights, this darkness and light, they coexist together.
mhm,
And so because of the perspective, that's what changes how you see what's happening in the world.
mhm,
Because
mhm.
in my if you
Well, we are all in a different timeline anyways, right? But I
right, yeah.
think, yeah, so it's like going towards that, like you said, the choices that we can make and literally extend our potential to really become of who we are. I think that's the patterns to change the humanity, or change the patterns of how we think and how, we can be better, right? Because
Mhm,
like I
mhm,
have 3 children, and for me, passing on that message to them and teaching them of what my parents did not teach me, or my mother's parents not teaching her, I'm teaching them completely differently. And I know deep inside my heart that my kids are so aware and so awake in the way that I believe too, like you, is that, if they do choose to have children, that they will pass on their message to them. And I really hope that it continues
mhm,
that way,
mhm.
in a
Yeah.
positive way for sure.
Yeah, one of the things that I think is really important as for anyone that's a mother
Mm,
with children is to learn their design, to learn specifically their human design,
mm,
because each of your children have a specific strategy and authority. And the younger you are, the younger you learn that, the easier it's going to be for you to always stay in alignment when you're an adult. Because we are, like, for example, you and I probably came into this sort of learning about self way after childhood, and so
mm,
we had to sift through a lot of stuff to
mm,
get to the core. But the children that are taught to go into the core right away, they
mm,
will they will have less resistance in life. They will know what to say yes, what to say no to. You empower them by teaching them their strategy and authority. And I think that that's something that all mothers could like, it would be so enlightening. And I know it has been, because I have also worked with mothers and pulled up, their children's charts, and they're like, oh my god, that makes so much sense. And you can guide better as a parent in that way. And that's kind of the world that we want, right? We want a world where, like,
mm,
we protect each other, but we help empower each other to make like, to become like, because everyone is a part of the whole, right? Humanity. So when one person um finds their center, then it helps the whole world find their center, because they're
mm,
like, oh hey, there's somebody that did it. If they can
mhm,
do it, I can do it. And then you become like an inspiration. Like, you're a 6'2", you said your profile. So the
mhm,
sixth line is the role model. So anybody that has that sixth line is essentially living life and making their way towards being that role model. And
mhm,
in the end, it's like you learn because you make a lot of mistakes, and
mhm,
you keep picking yourself back up, and eventually you have all this wisdom and all of these experiences that naturally are able to give other people an example of, like, how
mhm,
do I do it, so
mhm,
to answer your question about, is are we what direction are we going in, I really do feel like it depends, one, on each individual. And then also, I personally feel like you're right. There's also these different, like, timelines, And so, and it depends on the perspective, because one person, for example, I feel very hopeful about the world right now. I feel very, excited about the future right now. But I know that another person can feel the complete opposite, like
Mhm.
despair and all this stuff. And depending on how you look at one single thing will determine your experience of it. And that's why
Mhm.
it's like perception is everything. And for me, knowing your design helps you to understand this concept of what role does perception play in my reality, and everything
Mhm.
on the outside of your life reflects what's on the inside, right? So
Mhm.
and that includes your perspective and how you see things. So if
Mhm.
what you see on the outside is all chaos, then what's inside is chaos.
It's chaos.
So if
Mhm.
you use that mirror of life to try to gauge, like, well, where am I? What am I doing? If my life is chaotic, if all I see is these negative things, if I'm in this like kind of dark space, that's
Mhm.
the question to ask yourself. It's like, if my environment is reflecting what's going on inside, what can I do to heal what's inside so that what's outside changes? And this is the work that I'm passionate about doing, because that's what happens is you take your awareness from everything on the outside is causing things to me to, oh my God, I'm creating
Mhm.
them
Mhm.
because of the mentality or the belief system or
Mhm.
whatever the conditioning. And so you're perpetuating a world that essentially makes you feel out of alignment, which makes you
Mhm.
feel either, depleted, have no energy, feel lost, feel depressed, like all those negative things, instead of the joy that you were actually meant to experience or have the potential to experience. But again,
Mhm.
everybody has that choice. And that's what I love to teach people, is like, no, you can change your reality. You can literally change your reality. And I hope that this helps people, that
Mhm.
knowing their design helps them to do this.
No, I think it's great because again, like I said earlier too, it dipping your toes in what is the potential for you, and get up off your ass, as I can say it, maybe, um, and discover. And I know some people go through some difficult times, anxiety, depression, and there's a lot of things that weighs them down. But I think once you go into that little rabbit hole and you open that window, the potential is there.
Mhm,
The Yes, it's an unknown environment or area, but I think once you dive in, you'll have a little bit more of an understanding about yourself, and again, what the purpose is for you here on this earth. So, and
mhm,
I mean, if it's not, then it's just for you to maybe perhaps change those programmings
mhm, mhm.
that you were
Yeah.
taught.
Yeah, that's really it's so much simpler than we think, but
Hmm.
because most of us are coming into this awareness as adults,
Hmm.
we have a lot of work to do. and
Hmm.
it and it is exhausting, and there is a part of it that
Can
is
be. Yeah.
challenging. There's a
Yeah.
part of it that you have to go move through the mud in order to get to the clear waters. And that part is, you can't get out of it, you got to go through it. There's so many teachers that teach this, and it's so scary sometimes to go into that space, to like go through the mud to make your way out, that people give up.
Hmm.
It's too hard.
Listen, I'm today's my birthday.
Happy
I
birthday.
Thank you. I have turned 50, and be honest with you, it took me 50 years. Okay, minus 8, because I think I started my spiritual journey around 8 years ago. I love it. It's it's a journey. I'm still learning. I'm still going forward. I'm still discovering things, and I would never change it in a million years.
Right? You
Love
learn
every
to
single
love
part of
it.
it.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
learn to love it. I love that you just mentioned that, because right around 50 years old in astrology, there is a cycle that happens called the Chiron return. And
Mhm.
Chiron represents the wounded healer, and you have Chiron in Aries. And so
Mhm.
you're going through and experiencing that Chiron return, which is essentially a big part of the realization of that deep wound. And the wound of Aries is basically, you came into the world to feel this insecurity about, who am I and why am I here? And your whole life has had this theme of trying to find the answer to that. And when you get to your Chiron return, it's like there's a completion of that process and like a wisdom and a maturity that comes from that. And it happens right at 50. So
Mm.
congratulations. That's so
Perfect
exciting.
timing. Thank
Yeah.
you. Oh
Yeah.
my goodness, that's awesome. So, what significance of ancient wisdom plays in our lives, for example? Because I know you went to Egypt recently, and I would love to dive into that as well. But because I'm always also very drawn to the mystics of the pyramids and everything that basically was, I mean, the energies over there are incredible. Um, can you dive into that a little bit?
Yeah. So I just went to Egypt for the first time in my life with Robert Edward Grant. He, the story behind it is I have a fear of traveling, or I had. I feel like it's gone now. This trip pretty much kind of let it like released it for me. But it was because of that very first trip on the airplane that I took from Argentina to the United States, and that's the traumatic experience left me feeling very fearful of traveling, especially internationally. It's just a trauma that lives inside of me. But
Mhm.
when Robert invited me to come on the trip as faculty, and the reason why he even knew who I was because I had done a video on him, on his human design, gene keys, and astrology on my YouTube channel, Channel for Grace, and he had found it like a year ago and he loved it and he watched it, he said, like 30 times. Then 8 months later he randomly reaches out to me on Instagram and he tells me, I'd love to have you on the podcast, I'd love to get a deeper reading. And so it came, I feel like it came out of nowhere, but I had obviously I've been working for a long time to sort of ground myself into these systems and
Mhm.
really get confident with them. So he just kind of found me at the perfect time. And so we did the podcast and we did the reading. And then a few days later, he's like, I want to invite you as faculty to Egypt. And I was like, what? Because up until this point, I had been studying with Matias de Stefano, who is another teacher, and he's also from Argentina. He's amazing, but he teaches about the ancient Atlantean initiatic path along the Nile and the temples. If you didn't know, they follow the river. They go along the river, and each of the temples has a connection to a specific chakra, and the river, it looks represents the spine. And so the initiatic path in ancient Atlantis was, and this is talking about where we learned hermetic alchemy, is
Mhm.
it started at the in the bottom and going temple by temple, chakra by chakra, learning
Mhm.
about that aspect of our body and going higher and higher until we got to the Great Pyramid of Giza, where is the crown chakra, where we learn to speak with the world, in essence, to understand, to interpret information that the planet is like naturally emitting, but we can't hear unless we are in tune with it, right? So
Mhm.
I have been teaching my own version of that initiatic path for the last like 3-4 years in a
Mhm.
program called the Moon Goddess Training.
Mhm.
And we learn things like the laws of the universe, hermetic alchemy, sacred
Mhm.
geometry, astrology and the connection to the sacred geometry in itself. And all of these, and the chakras also, and all of these things that we learn are part of this, ancient wisdom and
Mhm.
mystical studies and all of the occults, right? Occult just means hidden.
Mhm.
And so we learn all these occult and hidden mysteries and mystical studies because we are learning how to understand how the universe works. So
Mhm.
hermetic alchemy and this, ancient civilizations and things like that there's a wisdom there that lives, like it literally lives in the walls of the pyramids, and it lives in the walls of the temples and these ancient lands that hold that frequency. And so when you're learning hermetic alchemy, what essentially you're doing, in my perspective, is you're learning how the universe works so that you can then learn how to receive information from the
Mhm.
Akashic field and then learn how to interpret that information.
Mm,
And when you know how the universe works, then you know, like, the right timing of things in life. You know that there's going to be consequences to the actions that I take now, that I'm going to have to come back later and deal with those consequences, right? The law of cause and effect. You know that your mind, the law of mentalism, creates your reality, and then
mm,
eventually it generates something into this physical time space reality. So it's a deeper way of learning, possibly, like, how to fit into this whole dynamic of, consciousness
mm,
and the universe. And so these ancient civilizations taught these things in their initiatic paths. And, there's a lot of different beliefs about, where the knowledge came from. Like, they came from the
mhm,
beings of the stars and all of that. But I had been teaching this for 4 years, and I always wanted to go to Egypt. I had never gotten a chance to go to Egypt, but I knew
mhm,
everything about the temples, what they represented, what was on the walls. I'd seen pictures and videos. I mean, you name it. I
mm.
knew the energy. And so, and I also said to myself that the time when I finally get to go to Egypt, it's going to be with Robert and Matthias, because I had watched them recently come together and do some podcasts together. And I was like, oh, I love that they found each other,
Yeah,
because these two
yeah.
people are just going to love, it's perfect. And so they
They're a
complement
perfect
each other.
match for sure.
Yeah, they
It's like
complement.
the feminine and the masculine coming together,
Exactly.
and they're really
Exactly.
co-creating this, yeah, this
Yes.
beautiful
So
energies. I
during
love it. Yeah.
Yeah, and during the podcast, Robert mentioned, I mentioned, "Oh, I wanna meet Matthias really bad," and he was like, "Well, I'll make that happen. I can arrange that," and it was so funny that he said that. Then a few days later, he's like, "Come to Egypt," and then also Matthias is coming, and he was there
Oh,
actually for the
wow.
beginning. I did a whole video on my YouTube channel describing my whole experience for anyone that's interested of that trip, but it
Mm,
was very significant because it was called the 144 Alpha Omega Expedition, and
okay.
obviously that number itself, a sacred, it's numerology, it's a sacred number. There's so
Mhm,
many nuances to this trip, but anyways, I ended up going to Egypt, meeting Matthias, and going and seeing temples for the first time, and it was like the DNA in my body, the experience that I had in my body in these temples, like, just activated something for me that I cannot describe. And I feel like I came back and my husband said, wow, your energy is completely different. It's like I healed, I released, I let go. Oh my god, it was a crazy trip. There's so many highs and lows about that Egypt trip, but the deepest thing was I felt like a huge reset. And like, it always feels like when I've always dreamed of going to Egypt and stuff, it feels
mm,
like a dream come true, and it feels like a coming home, because I always teach that the information that we learned back then, we're just remembering it. We already know it. It's in our cellular memory. We're just remembering this
mm.
information. So, yeah, that's my connection to the whole Egypt and, Hermetic alchemy and the ancient teachings.
So having that bigger understanding and connecting the dots again, it's profound. Yeah, it's the energies over there is incredible. One day I'll be there too.
Yes, yes. And I'm actually going back in May.
Oh, no way!
Mhm.
Oh,
Yeah,
that's
it's
interesting.
crazy because I have never had, I like I said, I had a fear of traveling for such a long time,
Yeah.
and now I'm like, "Huh, it's kinda gone." Like, that trip did something to that. Like, I think that
Mm.
trip just kind of relaxed me a little bit, because
It elevated you. Yeah.
it was such a recognition, it was such a deep recognition to be seen, and
Hmm.
to be invited, because I'm a projector and my strategy is to wait for the invitation. So
Yeah.
everything was in such perfect alignment for me in my human design, that it just, like, cleared so much crap from my
Mm.
energy field. And I do feel that. So I'm very excited, yeah, to be going back in May with Robert again,
Very cool.
on his May trip. Yeah.
Very, very nice. Well, I wish you all the best in there. And, I bet when you come back, is you're going to be completely different level again,
Another quantum
energetically
leap.
and everything.
Yeah.
So, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, how do you envision future of astrology in this basically rapid changing world today, um, like where are we going with this?
Do you mean with astrology as a system itself?
Yeah.
Well, astrology has been a practice that has been, also occult, like hidden. A lot of
Mhm.
people don't believe in it, specifically like in the whole religious space. They don't believe in astrology. And I feel
Yeah,
like,
because when you take a newspaper, or I'm talking about like in the back in the days, our grandparents took a newspaper and you would go in the back of the page and you would read the simple little astrology in there. So, what's the difference between that kind of astrology, which is just a very generic horoscope, into where you actually really dig your toes in it and finding out a little bit more?
Mhm. Well, I know that especially in like 60s and 70s, astrology kind of made a really big kind of comeback, meaning from like the ancient times, like um you have all the Greeks and
Hmm.
all the ancient philosophers, right, that like spoke about the planets and astrology, and you John Dee, and there's ancient books about astrology. Astrology was huge back then, right? And then it kind of died or went away, just kind of went into the underworld in a way. And then 60s and 70s it started to make a comeback. And so then you start to see things like that in the newspapers, like what's your sun sign, this week, blah blah blah, like that kind of like mundane, like everyday astrology. And yes, there's a layer to that. But it is very surface level. And you're right that astrology is also this huge rabbit hole that you can dive into. But in the last since then, since 60s and 70s until now, I mean, astrology has freaking exploded. Like a lot of people
Hmm.
do astrology now. And I do feel like it takes time to really learn it. And it also is dependent on who's studying it. Like their perspective will also affect like how they read the astrology. Right now, I mean, I feel for me that I have gotten to a place where the astrology and the chart and the energy of the people that I'm working with, speaks to me personally in the way that I understand the messages. And I know that that happens for everyone. So I feel like as long as people are you know connected to who they are and clear about who they are, that they will be able to do these deeper readings. But I feel like it's already happening. The deeper
Hmm.
readings are already happening now, and there's so many different ways to use the astrology to help guide you in life, and even show you like what cycles you're currently in, um so you can align better with them. And what's the collective themes that are going on in the transits and how they affect you in your chart. Like I encourage people to
Hmm.
actually learn their own chart and to follow the transits and see how they're going to affect you personally, because it's going to be different. So that mundane astrology is definitely something that I think was popular back then, because it was, I don't know, but it's always been attractive, like this, I want to know my astrology, I want to know my
Hmm.
this, I want to know my that. And so now I think that it's becoming more of a serious endeavor to really truly learn your astrology. It's more than just like uh you
It's
know
not a woo woo thing. It's
Mhm,
really coming more of,
mhm,
hey, there's more to it. If you know your time when you're born, the revelation and the openness of all these stars and what they represent and what they mean and everything is just a source of, because I'm a Pisces, but I know because of my ascendant and all the other stars along this side, I have all these other not constellations, but the other I guess you can call it constellations in it, and it gives me a little bit again more understanding of what I am, who I am, what does this mean, where I need to change, or, am I a Pisces? Well, I am, but I have a lot of Sagittarius in me too,
mhm.
right? It's kind of having that understanding of what they mean.
The astrology wheel in your natal chart is, it shows you these different facets of yourself.
Hmm.
And it separates them in a way that can help you kind of look at them one by one. But in reality, you are the whole conglomeration of all of that. So you are the embodiment of all of those things together in one person. So we tend to like to do this as humanities, as humans, is to understand things, we like to separate them into pieces and
Mm-hmm.
then put them back together, which is really funny because this actually takes me back to one of the most powerful teachings of the ancient path, is
Mm-hmm.
that that's how the universe works. Is there's expression, right? It comes out, and there's experimentation, integration, and then transcendence, and it's a cycle that just continues on and on and on in the universe, in us, at a macro level, at a microcosmic level. And this interpretation of the astrology is all these pieces of us is the same thing. It's like we split it apart, we split ourselves into pieces, like Osiris, like Isis and
Mm-hmm.
Osiris get split into 14 pieces. And then and there's astrologers now, like Robert Comer, I think his name is, and Robert Grant talks about it a lot, where they're now introducing or beginning to introduce two new signs to the chart, so making it a total of 14 signs, which would be the signs of Orion and Ophiuchus. And so
Right.
that would make it 14 signs, which would correlate with the story of Osiris getting split into 14 pieces and
Mm-hmm.
Isis having to put him back together. And so there's deep connections mystically with all of this
Mm-hmm.
astrology, and even his discoveries recently in the King's Chamber, and how the constellations are on the walls of the King's Chamber, and it's a stargate,
Mm-hmm.
it's a map, it's a
Mm-hmm.
star map. So
Yeah, I
there
saw that.
there
Yeah.
is so, and it's all coming back. And so I feel like right now it's like
Mm-hmm.
the veil is thinning, and it's time for us to see more. So more information will be revealed as humanity is more and more ready to
Mm-hmm.
see it. And I also believe that there are going to be some new discoveries, just like Robert has mentioned,
Mm-hmm.
in Egypt, that will start happening now, and start being revealed, because it's time for us to
Mm-hmm.
see what's actually there. For example, what's underground the Sphinx, what's,
Mm-hmm.
different passages and chambers inside the Great Pyramid and things like that. Like,
Yeah.
it's time. And so they're going to start coming up into our
Yeah,
conscious
just
awareness.
giving me goosies. And I know he was talking about it that there's two more pyramids that that he
Mhm,
found or that
mhm.
they're looking at.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
we actually went and walked on, we walked on one of them. Very
Mm-hmm.
much, I mean, from my own perspective, like, yeah, this mound definitely
Mm-hmm.
shows the everything that it would, that if they took the sand off of it, they would uncover a pyramid underneath, all the
Mm-hmm.
signs. And then there was another one that he pointed out to us, that also looks like similar. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it's things like that
Oh,
coming to the
I'm
surface.
so excited for you. You going back in May. It's going to
I
be
know.
interesting to hear the story live, especially when he goes live on these trips.
Yes.
It's quite interesting. Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah.
Yes.
So, what resources or tools do you recommend for the listeners who want to dive deeper into these topics? Is there anything or they can
If you're
look
someone
into?
who Yeah, if you're someone who loves self-study, you
Mhm.
can pull up your Gene Keys chart on genekeys.com. You can pull up your human design. There's many different websites. You could just Google how to pull up my human design chart. You could buy yourself, a book and study it on your own. Like, there's nothing holding anyone back from doing that. And I know a lot of people love that. Same thing with astrology. And then the other option is, if you're wanting that guidance, obviously, I recommend getting a reading from someone, because that can really help you to situate yourself and see where you're at with it. Sometimes we're a little bit familiar, but not at all. Sometimes we're not at all familiar with any of it. It's like all new language. So, and the other thing is, I would recommend that you give yourself time, and that you're patient with yourself in the process, because especially when you first start, it is a rabbit hole, and it can feel like, I don't understand anything. It's like learning a new language. So
Can
yeah,
be too
there's
much
two
and
routes.
overwhelming, right?
Yeah, there's two
Yeah.
routes. Like, some people thrive in doing the self-study thing, and some people would do really well with, like, for example, getting a reading.
Mm. What would be your final message for anybody who's listening today?
If you're listening to this conversation, that you were meant to hear it, if you're feeling inspired by the things that we're talking about, follow that inspiration and like follow that, that gut feeling. And, if you've never heard of these things before, start. Find, baby steps to one step at a time. Do you feel the call to really uncover who you are and get to know yourself in ways that you've always dreamed of being able to? And not just yourself, but also the people around you. So yeah, if you feel called, like take that leap of faith and jump into this world, and you're going to discover amazing things about yourself.
Mm, thank you so much. And how can people reach you?
You can find me usually on most social platforms as at Channel for Grace. So that's on Instagram. I also have a Moon Goddess training on Instagram. My website is channelforgrace.com. That's where you can book readings. I have a lot of programs. I teach online classes. So I have a private space held within Mighty Networks platform. Everything is, you can really find it on my website. And then the other thing that I highly recommend is that you subscribe to my YouTube channel, which is Channel for Grace, because I go live and I talk about the new and the full moon and the eclipses. Like I just did last night a reading
Mhm,
about the eclipse where I use astrology, gene keys, and human design to explain the energies, and it's
mhm.
phenomenal, the amount of information that comes through about just like one astrological event and the meaning for it for us collectively. So yeah, that's where you can find me.
Awesome. Wow, wonderful. Jai, thank you so much for sharing all this wonderful information. Again, all the best luck on your trip. I'm super excited for you, and I would love to hear more when you come back.
Sure.
Again, thank you so much for connecting.
Thank you so much for having me. This was great.
Thank you.